Chapter 2017. Self-Awareness. Zhang Henin smiled with a strange expression. She didn't expect that Jie Ming would have such an evaluation of her in his heart. That was great. Since he didn't give her any chance, she might as well tear him apart. Who didn't know each other's background? Who is the one who doesn't have self-awareness? Jie Ming, how long has it been since you broke up with her? She is the daughter of a rich family, and she has a handsome and rich fiancé. What about you, Jie Ming? You are just a pitiful person who was dumped, but you still can't forget her. You are the one who has been living in delusion. Slept. There was a moment of silence, until Zhang Henin reacted and covered her face. She screamed, Jie Ming, you actually hit me? You actually hit me. She seemed to have been provoked by something, and she reached out to scratch Jie Ming's face. Jie Ming didn't pay attention for a moment and felt a stinging pain on his face. Zhang Henin's sharp nails fell on his face, and he was afraid that he was bleeding. You shrew. He pushed her away with so much strength that Zhang Henin was pushed to the ground. Jie Ming was very irritated at this time, and he was very disgusted when he saw Zhang Henin on the ground. I tell you, Zhang Henin, we are finished. Pack up your things and get out of here. If you are still here when I come back tomorrow, don't blame me for being ruthless. He said coldly and slammed the door. The room was quiet again. Zhang Henin didn't realize what Jie Ming said until a long time after he left. He wanted to break up with her? And drive her out? After the initial confusion, what surged in Zhang Henin's heart was infinite panic and helplessness. Jie Ming didn't want her anymore. What should she do? She had no money and no job. Except for the branded clothes and jewelry, she had nothing at all. She had basically spent all the living expenses that Jie Ming had given her. She didn't have any real estate under her name, and the apartment she lived in was under Jie Ming's name. This also meant that if Jie Ming really abandoned her, she wouldn't even have a place to live. If that was the case, she would have to live a tight life like before, working 9 to 5 every day and not earning enough money for a bag in a month. She couldn't do this. She didn't want to live that kind of life again. She scrambled to her feet and took out her phone to call Jie Ming. She loved him so much. She had to admit her mistake properly. Jie Ming would definitely forgive her. The call went through. Zhang Henin didn't have time to think of what to say before the busy tone came from the phone. Clearly, the other party had died. She did not give up and dialed the number again. This time, it was not a busy tone, but a robotic female voice. He immediately blacklisted her. Zhang Henin sat on the cold floor in a daze, her eyes filled with despair. The next day, Gu Xingyin received a message from the system. Zhang Henin broke up with Jie Ming and was chased out? Gu Xingyin sighed in her heart. I really didn't misjudge him. Jie Ming is a man who doesn't have any feelings. The one he loves the most is himself. Because Zhang Henin had interfered with his career, he had mercilessly abandoned her. If Zhang Henin was really just a weak daughter flower, it would be fine. However, she was obviously a beautiful snake who hid her true colors very well. Gu Xingyin was in a good mood as she put a washed grape into her mouth. It was not bad to watch them bite each other. Chapter 2018. Jie Ming arrived very quickly. Moreover, he probably knew that Sun Yuye would come to pick up Gu Xingyin from work every day, so he specially chose this time to wait for her. Mr. Tsin, I've already broken up with Zhang Henin. I'm really sorry. I really didn't know that she had caused so much trouble for you and Miss Xie. Jie Ming's posture was very humble, as if he really felt very guilty about what Zhang Henin had done. Seeing that the two of them didn't react, he added, I can guarantee that she won't cause trouble for the two of you again. Sun Yuye glanced at him and moved his lips slightly. You can go back. Those companies from before probably won't work with you anymore. You can find someone else in the future. It has nothing to do with me. This meant that he had relented. Jie Ming was overjoyed. He thanked him repeatedly and left. The smile on his face disappeared completely after he returned to his car. Sun family, Xie family. One day I, Jie Ming, will let you taste the humiliation today. A cold expression flashed across his face. In Sun Yuye's car. Are you really going to let Jie Ming off? Gu Xingyin asked. She saw that Jiaming wasn't someone easy to deal with. Such people often held grudges. It would be fine if he didn't develop in the future, but if he did, she was afraid that it would bring disaster to the two families. Sun Yuye's lips curled up. Of course not. Gu Xingyin was stunned. Sun Yuye looked at her with a smile. If I couldn't tell, Jiaming already hates the two of us. How could I let such a person have the chance to rise up? Watching someone who harbored enmity against him rise up was the behavior of a fool. Since he had promised Jiaming, he would do it discreetly. People like them had plenty of ways to suppress a small company that was far from being established without anyone noticing. Gu Xingyin listened to him speak his thoughts to her without hiding anything. The feeling in her heart wasn't that he was such a scheming person on the outside, but this kind of personality was really to her liking. The car soon arrived at the entrance of the Xie family's villa. Speaking of which, when Sun Yuye's car entered this villa area, he would no longer be stopped. Because all the security guards here knew that the man driving the Bentley was Miss Xie's fiancé. The car stopped, but Sun Yuye didn't move. Usually, at this time, he would get out of the car and watch Gu Xingyin walk in with his own eyes. It seemed like something had happened. Gu Xingyin looked at him questioningly. Sun Yuye took a deep breath and turned to Gu Xingyin. Henin, it's about time we set a date for our wedding. Gu Xingyin blushed. Originally, the two of them had agreed to a contract marriage. They had intended to get married. It should be said that it was a flash marriage. However, the way the two of them interacted with each other recently was completely like a couple in love. Even Gu Xingyin herself had forgotten that she and Sun Yuye were not a proper couple. Since Sun Yuye asked this, he probably had an idea in mind, right? Hence, Gu Xingyin asked, "When do you want to get married?" Unexpectedly, Sun Yuye only lowered his head and said, "Me? Of course, the sooner the better." He couldn't wait to become a real couple with her. As for whether it was an agreement or not, who cares? He would make her his first. Chapter 2019. As for whether he would really fulfill the agreement when the time came, Crown Prince Sun expressed that he didn't believe that he couldn't conquer a woman's heart within the 3-year agreement. Thus, Gu Xingyin didn't sense Sun Yuye's sinister intentions at all. Of course, even if she did, she would actively cooperate. She nodded naturally. Set a date and communicate with uncle and auntie. I'll talk to my parents. Although she said this, Gu Xingyin knew in her heart that this matter most likely wouldn't be objected. During this period of time, she had also been to the Sun family twice. Sun Yuye's parents were very satisfied with her family background and character. Mother Sun couldn't wait for the two of them to get married as soon as possible. On the Xie family's side, Father Xie and Mother Xie were also very satisfied with Sun Yuye. Although it was a little abrupt to get married so soon, they wouldn't be too against it. Who wouldn't like to have a grandson? Sure enough, the marriage of the two of them almost received the full approval of the two families. Half a month later, a piece of good news quickly occupied the headlines of all the major media outlets in Yunhai City. The marriage of the Sun and Xie families. The most luxurious business marriage in Yunhai City in the past 20 years. The wedding date of the two of them was also exposed at the same time. It was in the middle of the next month. Time was tight. But in modern society, as long as there was money, there was nothing that couldn't be solved. The wedding venue was set in an old castle in the west. The scale of this wedding was simply unprecedented for the union of the Sun and Xie families. Compared to the extravagance of this wedding, the few celebrity weddings that the media had previously promoted as nouveau riche weddings, it was simply shabby. It wasn't that other people's weddings weren't good, but these two's wedding was simply burning money. Did a contractual marriage have to be so careful? The two of them tacitly didn't mention this matter. To Gu Xingyin and Sun Yuye, this was a once-in-a-lifetime wedding. It was only a 3-year marriage. What would happen when the agreement expired after 3 years? Sorry, what did you say? Why didn't I understand? This wedding of the century between the top families was talked about by countless people for a long time. Many people sighed and said that this newlywed couple must be very loving. If they didn't really have feelings for each other, who would be willing to spend so much money on a wedding? However, no one knew that, The newlyweds had not fulfilled their duties as husband and wife even after half a month of marriage. After the two of them got married, they moved out of their respective homes and moved into a new home, a villa that Sun Yuye had prepared long before they got married. It wasn't too far from their homes. If they missed home, they could go home to visit at any time. The current situation between the two of them was probably similar to how both of them liked each other, but it was still far from the point of breaking the window paper. It was mainly because of the agreement. The two of them couldn't directly break the conditions they had set. At home, Gu Shengyin slept in the master bedroom while Sun Yuye slept in the side bedroom. The two of them would go to work together. On their days off, they would go out to eat delicious food, go shopping, travel, and visit their elders. It could be said that the two of them had done everything that a normal loving couple could do. Except for the last step. The relationship between the two of them gradually warmed up, but neither of them was willing to break through that layer of window paper. It should be said that Sun Yuye was reluctant. Gu Shengyin has the mood of watching a good show, who asked him not to use so many methods but to dig a hole for himself and approach her with the contract marriage. She wasn't going to fill the hole that she had dug herself. It was finally done. This was the 10th update on the 4th. The 5th update continued. Begging for a monthly vote, begging for a monthly vote, begging for a monthly vote. Good night, everyone. Chapter 2020. Xiao Tio Xie, congratulations on your marriage. In the well-dressed hall, Gu Shengyin was wearing a gown and holding Sun Yuye's hand. The two of them were constantly greeted by people. It was the 80th birthday of a retired old man in Yunhai City. Although the old man had retired from the circle, he was a famous figure in Yunhai City when he was young. To these influential people now, he was enough to be called a senior. It was reasonable for them to come and congratulate such a person on his 80th birthday. Sun Yuye and Gu Shengyin, who had just announced their marriage not long ago, naturally attracted a lot of attention. The two of them maintained a smile on their faces and stood together the whole time. In the eyes of others, they were naturally a bunch of loving newlyweds. Gu Shengyin gestured to the people who came to greet her. She raised the wine glass in her hand and took a sip. Oh, she was a little dizzy. She didn't show it on her face, but her entire body swayed slightly. Others couldn't tell, but Sun Yuye, who was standing beside her, felt it very clearly. You can't drink. Sun Yuye was a little shocked and angry. Why didn't she say so? As he spoke, Sun Yuye reached out and half-hugged Gu Shengyin's waist. He brought her to the sofa near the balcony. There was a huge floor-to-ceiling window here, and there were several pots of green plants. Sun Yuye let Gu Shengyin sit properly and opened the floor-to-ceiling window a little. The cool night breeze seeped in. Gu Shengyin's somewhat muddled mind didn't sober up at all. Instead, it became even more blurry. This feeling was quite strange. To a certain extent, she was actually very clear-headed. She could feel the people around her and see all kinds of figures not far away. But she couldn't react effectively. It was as if she had temporarily lost control of this body. She was drunk. Sun Yuye turned his head to look at the person beside him. She sat on the sofa with an elegant posture and a calm expression, as if she was thinking about something. But if one looked closely, one would find that the corners of her eyes were faintly red, and her usually clear gaze had long lost its focus. Sun Yuye was both angry and amused. He saw clearly from the side that Gu Shengyin did not even finish a glass of wine. Was this the rumored 1 cup of wine? However, this appearance was indeed quite coaxing. He glanced at Gu Shengyin and confirmed that she was fine for the time being. He got up and said to her, "Henin, sit here obediently. I'll get you a glass of water." Gu Shengyin's muddled consciousness pondered for a long time before she finally understood the meaning of this sentence. She nodded seriously, looking extremely obedient. Seeing her like this, Sun Yuye felt as if his heart had been scratched by Xiao Yu's feather. His entire being was somewhat restless. He strode away and asked the messenger for a glass of water. When he came back, as expected, Gu Shengyin was still sitting in the same place. She looked so serious that the bystanders thought that something had happened to her. Surprisingly, they were tactful enough not to disturb her. It could be said that it was a wonderful coincidence. Xin Yuye glanced at her and confirmed that Gu Xingyin didn't have the ability to get up and drink water by herself at this time. Without saying anything, he took the water and sat down beside Gu Xingyin. "Come, Henin, open your mouth." He put the cup to her mouth and called her softly. Perhaps surrounded by a familiar aura, Gu Xingyin was quite obedient at this time. Chapter 2021. If he asked her to open her mouth, she would. If he asked her to drink, she would drink. After watching her finish half a glass of water, Xin Yuye put down the glass and sat beside Gu Xingyin, looking at her intently. Oh, her usually sly and intelligent big eyes were misty. She looked so cute. He really wanted to bully her. The corners of her eyes were a little red, as if she had blushed. Xin Yuye suddenly felt a little thirsty. He picked up the glass that Gu Xingyin had drunk half a glass of water and drank the remaining water in one gulp. At that moment, he actually had the urge to go up and lick her red eyes. Crown Prince Xin never knew that he would have such a perverted side to him. He retorted seriously in his heart. How could he be called a pervert if he wanted to kiss his wife? From afar, although no one came up to talk, there were quite a few people who had fixed their gazes on this unusual couple. However, these uncles and aunties of the older generation and the young single aristocrats were all stunned by their actions. The crown prince of the Xin family, who had always been cold, distant, and polite, actually fed his wife water. They couldn't see what exactly they were talking about, but everyone could clearly see that after Xin Yuye fed his wife water, he drank the remaining half a glass of water. So what if you're married? Are you very happy to be able to show off your love openly? Many young people secretly gritted their teeth. Originally, they were all staunch single people and felt that marriage was like a grave. However, when she saw such a clear stream among the rich couples, her heart suddenly surged with an impulse to get married. What was going on? Xin Yuye and Gu Xingyin didn't realize that they had unknowingly attracted a lot of hatred. Gu Xingyin was drunk. Xin Yuye naturally didn't feel at ease letting her sit here alone, so he kept watch over her. Those who knew what was good for them saw that the young couple was alone and didn't disturb them. But there were also a few who didn't have good eyesight. When they saw the head of the Xin family and the eldest daughter of the Xie family sitting here without anyone around, they couldn't help but have the idea of befriending them. However, they were destined to be rejected today. Xin Yuye was worried about Gu Xingyin and didn't have much intention of befriending these people. The few people who came forward were all pushed back by him with neither light nor heavy force. In the end, everyone knew that the eldest son of the Xin family shouldn't be disturbed today. Finally, the banquet ended. Xin Yuye had already asked his chauffeur to wait outside. He still had his arm around Gu Xingyin's waist and supported her as they walked out. How lovey-dovey! Many people behind them sighed as they looked at the two figures snuggling up to each other. Soon they reached home. Xin Yuye, Gu Xingyin, and an auntie usually lived in this villa. At this time, the auntie had already gone to bed. But knowing that the main family was having a banquet tonight, there must be some hangover soup in the kitchen. Xin Yuye helped her into the master bedroom and placed her on the bed. Then he squatted down and removed Gu Xingyin's shoes. He placed the blanket over her chest to prevent her from catching a cold. Xin Yuye turned around and was about to go to the kitchen to take a look. She was caught off guard and her hand was grabbed. And she held it very tightly. Xin Yuye couldn't help but laugh. "You're so drunk." The usual Henin would never do such a thing. He wanted to pull her hand down and coax her gently. "Good Henin, I'll get you some hangover soup." Chapter 2022. Unfortunately, at this time, Gu Xingyin didn't listen to him at all. At this time, she seemed to be lying in a pool of warm spring water. Her body and mind were lazy. This feeling wasn't very comfortable, but it wasn't uncomfortable either. But under such circumstances, she became extra dependent on this partner in her soul. She didn't want him to leave. Xin Yuye was still patiently waiting for her to let go when he heard Gu Xingyin murmur softly beside the bed, "Don't go. Don't leave me." Xin Yuye's heart jumped twice because of this sentence. He took a deep breath and felt that he was really trapped in an inextricable situation. The other party just said a few words casually after drinking, but he took it seriously. He said, "Henin, don't make trouble. I'll get you some hangover soup. Otherwise, you'll feel uncomfortable when you get up tomorrow." Gu Shengyin didn't fully open her eyes, but she subconsciously acted coquettishly. She just didn't want him to leave. "You stay with me. I like it, like it." Sun Yuye's heart was pounding. He tried to get closer, wanting to hear the rest of the words clearly. However, the little rascal on the bed stopped halfway through his sentence. It made his heart itch. Sun Yuye was a little depressed. He looked at the person close to him, but he couldn't get angry. His hand was still held in the other party's hand. A thought suddenly flashed through Sun Yuye's mind as he recalled what Gu Shengyin had said earlier. This thought made his heart extremely excited. Was it possible? Was it possible she also liked him? Once this thought was born, it couldn't be suppressed. Sun Yuye looked at the person on the bed tentatively, his eyes fixed on the other party's delicate eyebrows. After a long time, he finally called her softly, "Henin." Gu Shengyin's mind was muddled, but she could still hear someone calling her. She opened her eyes with some effort. Her hazy eyes were covered with a trace of fog, very much like the dense mountain forest that had just been washed by the rain in autumn, quiet and pure. Sun Yuye was almost attracted to those eyes, but he finally remembered that he had more important things to do. He stared at her without blinking and suddenly asked, "Henin, do you know who I am?" Of course he knew. Gu Shengyin blinked and grinned. Her misty eyes curved into cute crescents. Sun Yuye. Sun Yuye was delighted and hurriedly struck while the iron was hot. "Do you like Sun Yuye?" This question seemed to be much more profound than the previous one. Gu Shengyin's muddled mind spun for a while before she managed to accept the message. After thinking about it for a long time, he finally came up with an answer. "I like it." She answered with certainty. As if to prove her words, she even nodded her head seriously. Hearing this, Sun Yuye was both surprised and worried. He was pleasantly surprised that the person he liked and wanted to protect for the rest of his life had just admitted that she liked him. What he was worried about was that this was just the unconscious murmurs of the drunkard. Even so, he couldn't help but smile on his face. Gu Shengyin stared at him blankly. He was really good-looking, she thought in a daze. Alcohol was a very magical thing. Under its catalysis, it could often make many people do a lot of unexpected things. For example, Gu Shengyin at this moment. Chapter 2023. He bent down and looked at Gu Shengyin seriously. "Henin, we're husband and wife. So, no matter how much I treat you, you don't need to thank me. I just hate that I can't treat you better." Gu Shengyin's eyelashes fluttered. However, Sun Yuye naturally straightened his body and considerately drew the outer layer of curtains before walking out of the room by himself. "I've already made lunch. Get up and wash up." The door was gently closed. Gu Shengyin looked at the curtain that couldn't completely block the light and suddenly chuckled softly. 10 minutes later, Sun Yuye, who was sitting in the dining room, saw Gu Shengyin walking out. She had changed into a set of home clothes. Without the delicate and sharp makeup, she looked more like a little girl. Gu Shengyin sat down. In front of her was a bowl of steaming seafood porridge and 5 or 6 plates of various side dishes. Sun Yuye had good cooking skills. Gu Shengyin had known this for a long time. At first, she was surprised when she found out. Then Sun Yuye explained with a smile. "My mother always thought that a wife is meant to be loved, so when I was young, she made me learn to cook extra." Gu Shengyin scooped up a spoonful and drank slowly until the bowl was empty. She wiped her mouth. "Are you full?" Sun Yuye frowned and seemed to be a little dissatisfied. She was so thin and ate so little. Gu Shengyin repeatedly confirmed that she was really full. She quietly watched Sun Yuye finish the food in his bowl and said, "Oui." Sun Yuye looked up at her. Gu Shengyin was speechless for a moment. Facing Sun Yuye's gaze, she finally said, "The agreement between us?" Sun Yuye narrowed his eyes. He looked at Gu Shengyin and went straight to the point. "I don't intend to abide by that agreement." Gu Shengyin's eyes widened. Sun Yuye looked at her. "I regret it, Henin." I can't stand the fact that we've only been married for 3 short years. I can't stand the fact that I can only look at you from a distance every day without being able to kiss you or touch you. I also can't stand the fact that after 3 years, we'll go our separate ways and have nothing to do with each other anymore. I want your whole life, Xia. He looked into her eyes and said deeply. Gu Shengyin looked hesitant. She opened her mouth and said, Xinyuya immediately said, last night, you said you liked me. Gu Xin, Xinyuya continued, and you held me back and refused to let me go. Gu Shengyin, Xinyuya felt wronged. My people are already yours. You can't not take responsibility. Gu Shengyin. Xinyuya was still saying, don't reject me first. His eyes widened as he stared at Gu Shengyin. If he didn't hear wrong, her answer was okay? Xinyuya was instantly surprised. And in? Gu Shengyin smiled. I like you too. I like you a lot. The person opposite her stood up all of a sudden. Because his movements were so big, he even moved the chair. However, he didn't care about this. Instead, he walked over to Gu Shengyin's side and pulled her into his arms. I'm so happy, he said with a smile. Gu Shengyin let the man hug her and shared the joy of both parties. After a while, Xinyuya let go of her and said to her, wait for me for a while. Gu Shengyin watched as he walked into her room. In less than a minute he took out something. Chapter 2024. Gu Shengyin saw it clearly. It was a few pieces of white paper. She had a rough idea of what it was. Sure enough, Xinyuya unfolded the pieces of paper and placed them in front of her. It was the agreement they had signed back then. Xinyuya glanced at her and tore the pieces of paper into pieces in front of Gu Shengyin. Then he looked at Gu Shengyin expectantly. Gu Shengyin compromised. In the third drawer on the left of the dressing table in my bedroom, Xinyuya moved quickly. As if he was afraid that she would go back on her word if he was slow, he handed the pieces of paper to Gu Shengyin. Then, Gu Shengyin similarly shredded it into pieces and piled them together with another pile of shards on the table. The shackles that had been binding Xinyuya's heart were completely released. From now on, there was no more agreement between him and Henin. There was no exchange of benefits or favors. She was his wife, and he was her husband. There was no more unnecessary relationship. After dinner, Gu Shengyin was forced to rest by Xinyuya. He cleaned the dining room and kitchen himself. Xinyuya once again felt that he had the foresight to give the auntie a leave. At this time, it was most suitable for the two of them to have some alone time. When he returned to the bedroom, Gu Shengyin had fallen asleep again. Xinyuya looked at the slight fatigue on her face and felt a little guilty. But more than that, he was full of happiness. He thought for a moment and climbed into bed. The bed beside her sank. Gu Shengyin subconsciously leaned toward the source of the familiar scent. Feeling her unreserved dependence, Xinyuya couldn't stop smiling. He lowered his head and gently kissed Gu Shengyin's forehead. Have a good dream, my Henin. After the two sides explained everything, Gu Shengyin and Xinyuya's relationship became better and better. No matter where they went, they were almost always together. Therefore, those who knew about this couple all expressed that they had been completely showcased. In their small home, there was no longer a master bedroom and a secondary bedroom. Xinyuya had officially moved his things to the master bedroom that was supposed to be shared by the couple on the first night they established their relationship. Gu Shengyin naturally could not refuse such an act. Now, she was fully in control of the company's affairs. Her marriage was also sweet and blissful, and her life was very sweet. Of course, she had never stopped paying attention to Zhang Henin. Ever since she was chased out of the house by Jie Ming, Zhang Henin's life had been very difficult. Her educational background and ability were only average, but during those 2 years of being raised by Jie Ming, she had developed a character of being extravagant and arrogant. She was not interested in the jobs that she was interested in, and the jobs that she could do, according to him, were tiring and paid so little. Who would want them? Thus, she repeated the days of looking for a job, being despised, and looking for a job again. There was no source of income, and there was no limit to spending money. In less than a month, Zhang Henin began to feel financial tension. She had to find Jieming. The only person she could find was him. But why would Jieming care about her? The two of them quarreled every time they saw each other. In the end, Jieming was too lazy to see her again. After a few times, the two of them were like fire and water. Chapter 2025. Now, Zhang Henin had long forgotten about Gu Shengyin. Not to mention that the other party had already married and had nothing to do with her and Jieming. She had no extra energy to find trouble with Gu Shengyin. Right now, Zhang Henin's mind was filled with thoughts of how to get more money from Jieming. But who was Jieming? When he was willing to spoil Zhang Henin, he was naturally willing to spend money on her. But now, Zhang Henin obviously had no value for him to spend money on her. I've made it very clear to you, Zhang Henin. We broke up and have nothing to do with each other. Don't come to me again. Jieming was a little irritated at the moment. Recently, the company was not doing well. Several big clients who had worked well with him had withdrawn their investments. Either they had cash flow problems or they had found better targets. He was under pressure every day. Now, he finally had time to relax. But he was blocked by Zhang Henin, this woman who was haunting him. Zhang Henin's face was a little pale. She looked at Jieming and sneered, Jieming, I've been with you for 2 years. Every day, I washed and cooked for you like a nanny, and I even slept with you. Are you really going to send me away like a beggar? When you liked someone, you would feel good about whatever she did. When you didn't like someone, you would dislike whatever she did. At this time, Jieming was looking at Zhang Henin because of the latter. He only felt that this woman was disgusted. To be honest, Zhang Henin, you've been with me for 2 years. Have I treated you badly at all? Buying clothes, bags, and cosmetics, more than 100,000 yuan of pocket money is enough for me to hire dozens of nannies. Nanny? Zhang Henin seemed to have heard a joke. She loved this man. In the few years they were together, she took care of this man with the most attentive attitude. In exchange, she was just evaluated as a high-level nanny who could sleep with him? The two parted on bad terms again. Jieming frowned and drank there. Suddenly, a gentle voice sounded, Handsome, are you alone? He raised his head with hazy eyes and fell into a pool of hot spring. Jieming found a new love. A very beautiful and fashionable woman. Zhang Henin also found a job as a waitress in a large shopping mall. Of course, it was not those first-tier luxury brands. With her education and beauty, it was not enough for them to take a fancy to her. More than once, she saw Jieming accompanying that tall and innocent woman into one luxury store after another. Those places were once one of her favorite places. He wasn't even willing to give her a breakup fee, but he was willing to spend so much money on a strange woman. Zhang Henin's heart was bleeding from hatred. After several sleepless nights, Zhang Henin finally couldn't hold back the devil in her heart. She resigned, dressed herself up, and went to look for Jieming. Jieming was originally very impatient, but Zhang Henin lowered her attitude. Jieming, I know that I was too emotional a while ago. I've thought it through during this period of time. It's better for us to part on good terms. She looked at Jieming. I'm preparing to leave this city. In this place, the only person I've ever loved and the closest to is you. Before I leave, would you like to have a meal with me? Jieming frowned. To be honest, he didn't want to have anything to do with this woman at all. However, Zhang Henin's eyes were red. It was rare for her to show weakness. In the end, he couldn't be ruthless. He agreed. Chapter 2026. Zhang Henin took Jieming to the room she rented. It wasn't a big room with 2 bedrooms and a living room, but it was very clean. The whole style was very similar to the home Jieming had lived in for 2 years. His mood softened slightly. Looking at Zhang Henin, who was busy in the kitchen, Jieming even thought that maybe he was a little too much. The ingredients and whatnot had been prepared long ago. Jieming didn't finish watching a program, but he heard Zhang Henin calling him to eat. The table was full of about 10 dishes, including cold dishes. Jie Ming glanced over, almost all of them were his favorite dishes. He looked at the woman sitting opposite him, who was opening the red wine with gentle eyes, and the trace of guilt in his heart became stronger. Why not? Why don't you give her some money before she leaves? Zhang Henin looked at him with a rare gentle gaze. She was stunned for a moment, and her hand movements subconsciously stopped. What's wrong? A trace of hesitation flashed in her eyes. Jie Ming shook his head, thinking that it would be better to talk to her later. Nothing. Zhang Henin lowered her eyes and said, "Oh." She opened the red wine cork and poured a glass for Jie Ming. When she handed it over, Jie Ming noticed her hand. It was very white, and it was extra beautiful against the red wine glass. Zhang Henin raised the wine glass and raised it to him. "Come, Jie Ming, sacrifice to our past." The word, sacrifice, stunned Jie Ming for a moment. He also raised the wine glass and drank the red wine in the glass. The atmosphere between the two was the most harmonious in a while. Jie Ming ate the familiar dishes, his heart was filled with emotions. "Henin, let me tell you." He didn't finish his words, but suddenly he felt a little dizzy. Jie Ming thought that he had been too tired and didn't have enough rest during this period, but the dizziness was getting stronger and stronger. The moment before he lost consciousness, he saw Zhang Henin's sneering face. Gu Xingyin was shocked when he received the system notification. "What did you say?" Zhang Henin drugged Jie Ming with the intention to hurt him? Gu Xingyin was a little surprised, but after thinking carefully he felt that it was expected. System, simulate a number and call the police. Gu Xingyin pondered for a moment and said, she didn't know what Zhang Henin wanted to do, but since she knew, she couldn't just let it go. The system responded. The police in Yunhai City received a strange phone call. The voice on the phone said that someone in room 1203 of XX district had knocked someone out with the intention of hurting them. That person didn't reveal any additional information. What was strange was that when the police checked the number of the person who called the police, it showed that there was no such person. Although they weren't sure if the news was true, the police still immediately sent out officers to take action. However, when they arrived at Zhang Henin's residence, they were still a little late. She used the kitchen knife to cut off Jie Ming's 10 fingers, as well as his manhood. If the police had come any later, Zhang Henin's next target would have been Jie Ming's neck. When she saw the police arrive, other than the initial panic, she quickly calmed down. However, she looked at Jie Ming with pity. If she had known, she would have acted faster. The two police officers were experienced, but when they saw Jie Ming's miserable state, their faces still turned green. This was no longer a simple murder, it was simply perverted. Chapter 2027. The next day, the news was leaked on the internet. There were no photos and there was no description of who it was. It only mentioned that there was a perverted assault case in a certain neighborhood, and the victim's tragic condition was mentioned in a few words. Although it was only a few words, it still made people who saw this news feel cold all over. Gu Xingyin saw this news. Her gaze deepened. She did not expect Zhang Henin, this woman, to be so ruthless when she wanted to. Sun Yuya also saw this news. He was the kind of person who was very well informed, and the fact that Jie Ming's ex-girlfriend vented her anger on him was no longer a secret in their circle. It was just that this kind of thing was too bloody. Except for the shock at the beginning, everyone tacitly chose not to talk about it. Seeing Gu Xingyin browsing this website silently, Sun Yuya thought she was afraid. He walked over and held her hand. Henin, don't be afraid. Gu Xingyin opened her hand and held him back. I'm not afraid. I just feel that woman is too crazy. It was indeed crazy. An ordinary woman would never do such a thing. Sun Yuya also frowned. It said that someone called the police, which saved Jie Ming's life. He was obviously a little worried, thinking that it was fortunate that the woman didn't target Henin. Gu Xingyin didn't say anything else. She just grabbed Sun Yuya's hand and leaned on his shoulder. Jie Ming's luck was still good. Because it hadn't been cut off for long, his finger could still be barely reattached. But the symbol of a man, perhaps Zhang Henin was too emotional when she did it at that time. Not only did she cut it off, but she even cut it a few times to vent her anger. All in all, the result was Jie Ming was no longer a normal man. It was said that in Jie Ming's ward, the sound of cursing could be heard every day. The nurse in charge of him was a little impatient, but at the same time, she understood and sympathized with him. Any man who encountered such a thing would probably break down, right? In the blink of an eye, more than a month had passed. Jie Ming quieted down a lot and slowly stopped cursing. He seemed to have accepted this fact, but his eyes were shrouded in a layer of gloominess. However, the bigger blow was still to come. When the hospital did a routine evaluation for him, he tested positive for HIV. A bolt from the blue. Therefore, Jie Ming, who could have gone home to recuperate, was quarantined. According to his description, the hospital immediately targeted Jie Ming's new girlfriend, a girl named Yanzi. Sure enough, that extremely pure swallow was, in fact, a high-class prostitute. She once worked in a high-class club for 5 years. Later on, she went out on her own and targeted the young and promising men there. He couldn't tell where she got the disease from. To everyone's surprise, when Jie Ming heard the news, he wasn't even as excited as when he woke up from his coma. He seemed to accept this fact very easily and accepted the hospital treatment very quietly. Even the doctors, who had seen all kinds of strange things, had a trace of pity in their tone when talking about Jie Ming. This man was really unlucky. First, he had lost his dignity as a man. Now, he was going to lose his life. Chapter 2028. Jie Ming was completely silent now. Sometimes, he didn't say a word for the whole day and just sat there alone. After a while, he applied to be discharged from the hospital. The hospital couldn't force the patient to stay. In addition, Jie Ming's body seemed to be fine at the moment, so he quickly went through the discharge procedures. Jie Ming returned home and made a lot of phone calls. First, he went to see his girlfriend. Yanzi was having a good time in the bar. When she saw Jie Ming, she even smiled and said hello. She didn't look sorry at all. People like them often had several different ideas. Some people began to plan the rest of their lives after lamenting their bad luck. They would go to places they wanted to go but had never been, play games they wanted to play but had never dared to play, and make up for the regrets as much as possible. It was also a kind of responsibility for life. But there was a group of people who began to feel unbalanced when they learned that they had such a shameful disease and could die at any time. On the one hand, they complained about the unfair world that let them contract such a disease. On the other hand, they began to take revenge on society. They completely let go of the moral shackles and turned themselves into the kind of people they used to hate the most. Yanzi was the latter. After knowing that she had contracted this disease, she began to complain about the unfairness of fate. After that, it was a completely broken pot. She couldn't remember how many men she had slept with without using condoms. Every time she saw the satisfied look of those men, she would have a kind of revenge pleasure. Do you feel good? Ha, you don't know that the woman you just slept with has AIDS. When she saw Jie Ming, she didn't feel guilty at all. If this man didn't covet her beauty, how could he sleep with her? Jie Ming didn't say anything. He threw a stack of money and asked her to stay with him for another night. Yanzi showed a meaningful smile. She thought that Jie Ming would drink with her, so she began to prepare to break the pot. At this time, she still didn't know what had happened to Jie Ming. If she knew, she wouldn't dare to go home with him even if she had 10 times the courage. At 3:30 in the morning, Jie Ming drove out of the house with a cold look. He found a bar and drank all night. In the morning, he drove to the prison. He went to see Zhang Henin. Zhang Henin was wearing a blue prison uniform. Her hair was cut short and there was no makeup on her body. She looked a lot more haggard. That's right. Life in prison is much harder than outside. Seeing Jie Ming, Zhang Henin laughed nervously. Jie Ming, how does it feel to be castrated? Ha, let me tell you, Zhang Henin, don't regret it at all. Ha, Jie Ming also revealed a smile. I know you don't have a good relationship with your parents, but you have a younger sister that you love very much, he said gloomily to Zhang Henin. Zhang Henin, you've been secretly transferring money to your sister all these years. Your biggest goal is to buy a house in C City for your sister and bring her over. Zhang Hanin's expression suddenly became uneasy. Jie Ming was still smiling. Your dream will never come true. Zhang Hanin, your sister disappeared from school yesterday. He looked at Zhang Hanin's widened eyes and laughed as if he was taking revenge. Chapter 2029. Do you know where she has gone? Zhang Hanin looked at him with a frightened expression. Jie Ming just smiled and said, she was abducted and sold to a remote mountain village that didn't even have a road. The people there have never left the mountain village in their lives. Countless single men can't get a wife. Sharing a wife is a very normal thing. The young girls who are abducted and sold there can't live more than 2 years. They are tortured. He looked at Zhang Hanin with a trace of madness in his eyes. Zhang Hanin, you ruin me. I won't let you have a good life. No, not only you, but also the people you care about. I won't let them have a good life. Zhang Hanin looked frightened. No, you can't do this. Jie Ming, you can't do this. Jie Ming smiled. No, I can. He couldn't live anymore. What else couldn't he do? Zhang Hanin suddenly pressed the alarm frantically. But before the police arrived, Jie Ming had already taken out a gun from his pocket. Don't struggle, Zhang Hanin. I said that even if I die, I won't let go of those who made me like this. Bang. When the police arrived, they saw Zhang Hanin lying in a pool of blood and Jie Ming pointing the gun at them. I'll turn myself in, he said calmly. Then he pulled the trigger. No one was able to stop him in time before the man ended his life. 2 days later, the police received a call. A resident said that there was a foul smell coming from next door. No one had come in or out. When the police opened the door, they thought that the policewoman had vomited. The whole living room was covered in blood. The woman was brutally killed on the sofa. Her body was slashed countless times. Her body was twisted strangely. Her limbs were cut off and thrown aside. Her eyes were wide open in disbelief. It was summer. The air conditioner was not turned on in the house. The smell inside was imaginable. The police soon solved the case. The murderer was Jie Ming, who committed suicide 2 days ago. And the woman he killed was his girlfriend. The reason he killed her was simple. The woman had AIDS and infected him. All in all, it was a bad debt. Gu Shengyin only knew the news after the police solved the case. Her focus had always been on Zhang Hanin and she had neglected Jie Ming. Based on her understanding of Jie Ming, he shouldn't be such a crazy person. Perhaps, he had really been forced to the brink of collapse. Gu Shengyin couldn't help but shudder when she thought about all the things that had happened to her recently. Then she was pulled into a warm embrace. Don't be afraid. Xin Yuye hugged her tightly with heartache, as if this could give her unlimited strength. As long as I'm here, I won't let anyone hurt you, he whispered in her ear. Gu Shengyin nodded. After thinking for a while, she reached out to hold his hand and gently placed it on her lower abdomen. And our children? Xin Yuye. He was silent for a while before he finally understood what Gu Shengyin meant. The heavy atmosphere just now was swept away, and nothing else mattered anymore. He looked at Gu Shengyin. His voice was a little unsteady. His hand was still on her stomach. Hanin, you mean we have a child? Chapter 2030. Xin Yuye, this man, was always calm and composed at all times. This was the first time Gu Shengyin had seen him lose his composure. I'm so happy. I'm really so happy. Xin Yuye couldn't stop smiling. I'll tell our parents this good news. Xin Yuye quickly took out his phone and was about to make a call. He glanced at Gu Shengyin and deliberately walked away, muttering that radiation was bad for pregnant women and the fetus. Gu Shengyin was speechless. She silently looked at the phone in her hand. On the other side, Xin Yuye had already called both parents in an extremely excited and proud tone. In just half an hour, the 2 elders of the Xin family and Mrs. Xie rushed over. As for Mr. Xie, he still had something to do at the company and would only come back to see his daughter at night. The family looked at Gu Shengyin as if they were looking at a big treasure. Gu Shengyin sat on the sofa and listened to her 2 mothers nagging her about some things to take note of. Her mother-in-law, Mrs. Xin, was even more swift and decisive. After hearing that her daughter-in-law was pregnant, she immediately called an old friend of hers and had already booked an aunt for her daughter-in-law to take care of pregnant women. Mrs. Xie said that she would set off tomorrow to a very effective Buddha mountain to ask for a protective talisman for her daughter. Gu Xingyin listened to her mother's teachings with a mysterious smile on her face. When the elders left at night, she finally couldn't help but hold her forehead. She looked at Sun Yuye, who was washing fruits for her, and complained, "You don't know, but our mother thinks I'm fragile." Sun Yuye lovingly stuffed a freshly peeled apple into her mouth and said with a smile, "Don't be fooled by our mother's words. She's much more nervous than you are." He blinked and whispered, "My mother even came to chat with me just now. She said that pregnant women are fickle and I can't make you angry. I have to go along with everything you say." Gu Xingyin burst out laughing. Seeing that she didn't seem to have any psychological pressure, Sun Yuye was relieved. He said with an aggrieved expression, "If you ask me, our mother doesn't believe her biological son at all. When did I make Henin angry? You've always followed my orders, haven't you?" Gu Xingyin reached out and gently hammered him. "Don't talk nonsense." Sun Yuye knew when to stop. He smiled and held his wife's hand as they sat on the sofa. "I'm not poor. My entire life's worth of flowery words have all fallen on Henin." Gu Xingyin glanced at him and didn't say anything. She just ate the fruit casually. Soon he felt a little sleepy. Sun Yuye saw that her eyelids were about to close and gently shook her hand. "Henin, if you're sleepy, let's go to bed." Gu Xingyin didn't want to move at all. She mumbled something that Sun Yuye couldn't hear clearly. He sighed, bent down, picked her up, and gently placed her on the bed in the bedroom. Then he lay down next to her. Gu Xingyin naturally turned over and rolled into his arms. Sun Yuye saw her actions and was a little worried. As a first-time father, he was always afraid. Then he saw his wife's eyes open under the warm wall lamp. She wasn't asleep? Just as Sun Yuye was wondering, he felt an arm around his waist. Then he heard his wife's gentle voice. "Yeah, hubby, I didn't tell you that I like you the most. I love you the most." Sun Yuye's body trembled. For the first time, she told him without reservation that she loved him. A smile appeared on Sun Yuye's face. He lowered his head and kissed his wife's forehead. "Yes, I know. I love you too." Chapter 2031. Xie Han and Sun Yuye had lived a happy life together. When they were old, Sun Yuye had brought Gu Xingyin to an island in the west. The people here believe in their God, believing that their almighty God can fulfill all their wishes. At that time, his hair had turned white and his face was full of wrinkles. However, when he looked at his wife, his eyes were filled with tenderness and love. "I never believed in these worries. However, when I was old, I changed my mind." He held his wife's hand and bowed solemnly to the huge statue. "I hope that in the next life, I can still find you and become husband and wife with you." At this time, Gu Xingyin had become a kind old lady. She held her husband's hand tightly and smiled happily. I will also find you." Fate would not let them go far away. When she opened her eyes again, Gu Xingyin's eyes were peaceful. She glanced at the system. The system immediately understood her thoughts. The host can continue to try. Gu Xingyin felt the power in her body. She was unprecedentedly confident. She could sense that she was only one step away from that realm. She stretched out her right hand and drew a line in the air beside her. A pitch-black crack suddenly appeared in front of Gu Xingyin. She stepped in without hesitation. It was the same scene she had seen before. The pressure from the space-time crack fell on Gu Xingyin's body. However, she did not care and slowly walked forward step by step. There was no fixed route here. She could only rely on herself to walk forward slowly. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, Gu Xingyin did not know how far she had walked. It felt like only a short period of time, yet it also felt like thousands of years had passed. She could only feel the pressure on her body growing stronger and stronger. It had reached the point where she could not bear it anymore. As long as she took a step back, the feeling of exploding pressure would disappear. However, this was far from the limit. Her footsteps became very slow. However, Her gaze became more and more determined. Suddenly, she stopped in her tracks. Her determined gaze seemed to shine. Who was here? Her strong intuition told her that this was the final destination. She took a deep breath and resisted the enormous pressure coming from the endless cracks. She suddenly stretched out her hand and slashed forward. A huge crack appeared in front of her eyes. In front of Gu Shengyin, countless dazzling white lights seemed to appear. Within the white light, she saw a figure in green robes. He seemed to be very far away, out of reach, but also very close. Gu Shengyin could even see the cloud patterns embroidered on his green robe. In just a moment, her tears fell. She knew it was him. She couldn't take another step forward. She could only pray that the person knew that she was looking at him and turned around to look at her. Perhaps because this thought was too strong, that person seemed to have sensed something. His body suddenly moved, and then he slowly turned his head. However, before Gu Shengyin could see his appearance, the space behind her seemed to have sensed a huge and terrifying existence and suddenly collapsed inch by inch. "Host, come back quickly." The system's anxious voice suddenly appeared in her mind. An irresistible force pulled Gu Shengyin. In the next moment, she was brought back to the pure white space. Chapter 2032. Gu Shengyin glanced at his surroundings, feeling a little lost. But the next moment, she came to her senses. She looked at the system and said happily, "System, I see him." A white light flashed on the system. "Congratulations, host." Gu Shengyin then asked, "System, did you pull me back just now?" The system's white light flashed. "Detected that the host is in danger and forcibly brought you back." At this moment, Gu Shengyin was completely grateful to the system. In that situation just now, if it weren't for the system, she would have insisted on waiting there until she saw that person's face. But under the situation of the space-time crack collapsing, could she really escape unscathed? Now that she could see him, as long as she completed a few more missions and gained more power, sooner or later, she would be able to rely on her own power to break free from the shackles of the space-time crack and truly step into the place where he was. System, begin to transfer to the next world. This was a very beautiful garden. The sun was shining brightly in the morning, and many of the flowers in the garden were in full bloom. A girl who looked to be about 15 or 16 years old was hanging on a swing, laughing nonstop. Another girl who looked to be about the same age was reading an original book under the flower rack on the other side. Gu Shengyin raised her head. If someone saw at this moment, they would be surprised to find that the girl reading the book and the girl playing on the swing looked exactly the same. Yes, they were twins. And this time, Gu Shengyin had transmigrated into the body of her elder sister, Su Jian. And the girl playing on the swing was Su Jian's twin sister, Su Jiao. The two daughters of the Su family were very famous in Xia City. Not to mention their rich family background, both of them were as beautiful as flowers. At a young age, they had already revealed their looks that could topple cities. However, one of them was active and the other was quiet. The elder sister, Su Jian, was like a secluded orchid living by the water in an empty valley, while the younger sister, Su Zhiyao, was like a gorgeous red peony blooming in the mountains. Many of the young masters of Xia City were secretly thinking about who would win the heart of the two sisters when they grew up. "Sister, come here and give me a push." Gu Shengyin raised her head. Su Zhiyao was probably tired from playing alone, so she started to act coquettishly towards her sister. She slowly closed the book, but had no intention of going over. Ever since she was young, Su Jian had always thought that she was the older sister and that she should spoil her younger sister. She had always given in to Su Zhiyao since she was young. Thus, Su Zhiyao developed the habit of asking her sister for help no matter what happened. Under such a one-sided situation, the relationship between the two sisters was indeed very good. They were inseparable from each other since they were young. Su Jian had once naively thought that they would be together forever. However, she had never expected that her younger sister would push her out as a scapegoat after she got into trouble while fooling around. Su Zhiyao had enjoyed the feeling of being praised by everyone since she was a child. She was good-looking and knew how to dress up. Since junior high school, She had received an endless stream of love letters and confessions. Of course, she had a boyfriend since junior high. In the 3 years of junior high school and high school, Su Jiao had changed boyfriends countless times. Actually, she didn't love those people. She just enjoyed the feeling of being pampered and loved. When it came to relationships between men and women, Su Jiao was even more free and easy. In junior high school, she had already given away her virginity. Chapter 2033. After she became an adult, she became even more unscrupulous. Su Jiao often had several boyfriends at the same time. According to her own words, she enjoyed the feeling of being loved and the pleasure of sex. After she entered university, she became even more unscrupulous. She even participated in various parties with a group of playful friends. The Su family's parents had also heard of Su Jiao's reputation, but they only thought that their younger daughter was playful. They didn't expect her to be so playful. Su Jian was completely different from Su Jiao. She was almost the model of a rich family's daughter in Xia City. She always got first place in her exams when she was young and was proficient in piano, violin, and ballet. In high school, she was recognized as the top student and campus belle. After she entered university, she became the goddess of the top school in the country. When she was in school, she wasn't affected by her younger sister's reputation, because the two sisters didn't even go to the same school. They were both elite schools, but Su Jian went to the kind of private school that required both money and ability. The management was especially strict. If Su Jiao went to that kind of school, she probably wouldn't be able to take more than a week and would complain about dropping out. Moreover, with her terrible grades, the school wouldn't accept her at all. Su Jiao went to the kind of elite school that everyone else knew. As long as one had money, the school dared to accept them. Moreover, the teachers didn't dare to control them too much. With a group of second-generation heirs in there, it was enough to imagine what kind of foul atmosphere it was. As they grew older, more and more disagreements appeared between the two sisters. Su Jian was a very self-disciplined person. She had a strict life plan and had been working hard to achieve it. She had heard of her younger sister's reputation and had advised her before. The two of them even parted on bad terms because of this. But even so, in Su Jian's eyes, her younger sister was still the one who needed her care and love. However, this younger sister didn't see her elder sister in this way. In the eyes of Su Jiao, who was becoming more and more rebellious, her elder sister Su Jian was a hypocrite. She put on a disguise and easily gained everyone's favor. Especially when others talked about the daughter of the Su family, they were full of praise for Su Jian. Moreover, Su Jiao felt that Su Jian's thinking was very old-fashioned. What did she mean by having feelings for each other before dating and being unwilling to develop a relationship? Come on, what era was this? Did she really think that she was a lady from a wealthy family living in ancient times? Once upon a time, a group of disreputable friends had asked Su Jiao to call her sister to play together. Su Jiao had said casually, "She's so boring. She's so old and still an old virgin. Why are you calling her?" He did not hide his disdain at all. Su Jian was completely unaware of this. Su Jiao was still playing casually. As the saying goes, if you often walk by the river, how can your shoes not get wet? As she played around, she finally provoked a man that she couldn't afford to provoke. The leader of some underground organization. According to Su Jiao's character, of course, she would leave after sleeping with him. However, he was interested in her and refused to let her go easily. While the two sides were entangled, Su Jiao happened to see the man's gun under his pillow. She suddenly realized that this was someone she couldn't afford to provoke. In a moment of desperation, she gave Su Jian's name and said that her family would be worried since she hadn't been home for the whole night. She wanted to go home first and ask that man to look for her again after some time. Chapter 2034. But the address she gave was Su Jian's first university. On the third day of school, Su Jian was on her way home when she was knocked unconscious and taken to a strange place. What followed was a period of extremely dark days. According to what the man said, This was a punishment for being disobedient. From what Su Jian knew, she never knew that there were so many ways to humiliate and torture people in this world. She didn't know that this man was caused by her sister, Su Jiao, and thought that he was after the Su family. Finally, after enduring for more than a week, Su Jian found an opportunity. She escaped, dialed 110 and called home. Before she could escape, she was discovered. She was forced to the rooftop of the 6th floor, and then jumped down without hesitation as the man laughed coldly. When the Su family and the police arrived, they saw a lifeless body lying in a pool of blood. The man had already escaped, leaving behind a scapegoat. But how could the Su family let it go? This case shocked the entire Xia city, and even the whole country. The underground organization, which had been powerful in the neighboring province for several years, was uprooted overnight. The Su family finally knew why their quiet and obedient eldest daughter had suffered such an unexpected disaster. It turned out that this wasn't an unexpected disaster, but a diversion of the trouble. Mrs. Su, who had always doted on her daughter, slapped Su Jiao and pointed at the door, telling her to get lost. Su Jiao never thought that she would cause such a big scene, but obviously, there was no way to change the established result. The day after she was kicked out of the house, the Su family held a press conference and hired a lawyer to cut ties with Su Jiao. From then on, Su Jiao and the Su family of Xia City had nothing to do with each other. They couldn't face this daughter who had killed her own sister. In just half a month, the Su family had cut ties with 2 daughters, 1 dead. Outsiders speculated about the reason, but the person involved never appeared in front of the public again. Gu Xingyin came back to her senses. Su Jiao, who was sitting on the swing opposite her, was getting impatient. "Sister, come over quickly." Gu Xingyin's lips curled into a not-so-warm smile. She raised her voice and said, "I'm a little tired from reading. I'm going back to sleep for a while." After saying that, she stood up with the book in her arms and ignored Su Jiao. Su Jiao was left alone on the swing, frowning. "Sister, it seems that something is wrong." Gu Xingyin walked into the house. There was a woman in a plain dress arranging flowers in the living room. "It's so beautiful." Gu Xingyin praised sincerely as he walked up to her. The beautiful woman raised her head and revealed a joyful smile. "Yan Yan, do you think it's beautiful?" Obviously, the praise from her daughter made her very happy. Gu Xingyin sat beside her, put down the book, and looked at it carefully for a while. Then he nodded affirmatively. "Very beautiful." She said it was beautiful, but she frowned. The beautiful woman asked nervously, "What's wrong?" Gu Xingyin said seriously, "I just think that these flowers shouldn't be placed here." The beautiful woman asked, "Why?" Gu Xingyin's eyes showed a little slyness. "Because Mom is sitting here. How can I see the color of these flowers?" Chapter 2035. You sure know how to talk. The beautiful woman, Mrs. Su, scolded her daughter, but the smile on her face didn't disappear. No woman could refuse a compliment that praised their beauty, especially when the person who praised her was her most beloved daughter. At this moment, Su Jiao walked in unhappily. Seeing her sister and mother like this, she greeted them indifferently and went straight upstairs. As a mother, Mrs. Su naturally sensed her daughter's mood immediately. "Yao Yao is not very happy?" Gu Xingyin shook her head. "She asked me to push her on the swing. I was tired from reading, so I refused. Maybe she's not very happy." Mrs. Su had always known that her younger daughter was more delicate than her older daughter. Hearing this, she only said, "Don't spoil her too much. You're the same age." They were only born a few minutes apart, but Yan Yan had been giving in to her younger sister since they were young. She was so sensible that even as a mother, she felt sorry for her. She was willing to let her daughter live a more delicate life. Gu Xingyi nodded. "Yes, I'll be more careful in the future. Yao Yao should grow up too." Mrs. Su was a little surprised by her reaction. In the past, her daughter would never say such things. She always wanted to take care of her younger sister in every possible way. Seeing her mother looking at her like this, Gu Xingyin just pouted and said, I also want my brother to take me to the snow mountain to play. Some time ago, the two sisters' brother, Su Jiqian, went to the United Kingdom to discuss a project. Originally, he said that he could bring the two sisters along. But later, he changed his mind and could only bring one sister. In fact, the two sisters really wanted to see the snow, but Su Jian was sensible and didn't pester people like Su Jiao. So in the end, the one who went was unsurprisingly the younger sister, Su Jiao. A sensible and modest child would always be at a disadvantage at some point in time. Hearing her daughter's words, Mrs. Su felt a little sour in her heart. Her husband, who had a serious personality, preferred his youngest daughter, who loved to play and quarrel. As a mother, she preferred her eldest daughter, who was sensible and iron-hearted. She hugged her daughter and said, "It's okay. Next year, I'll take you to see the snow." Gu Xingyin smiled. Now, the 16-year-old sisters were in their first year of high school. They weren't in the same school, but they weren't far from each other. It was just that most of the students from the two schools didn't like each other. Ji Sua Middle School, where Su Jian was from, was a well-known high school in the country. Most of the students there were straight-A students. They looked down on the ignorant and incompetent second generations of the Yingde Middle School next door. And the students of Yingde High School, where Su Jiao was from, didn't have the slightest good impression of the group of Ji Sua High School who had their eyes on the top of their heads. In terms of reputation, Su Jian and Su Jiao were both well-known figures in their respective schools. It was just that the way he became famous was a little different. In Ji Sua Middle School, junior sister Su Jian, who was in her first year of high school, won the championship of the Xia City hosting competition and the championship of the National High School Debate Competition shortly after she entered the school. In addition, at the welcoming party, this quiet and elegant girl shocked the audience with a passionate piano piece, Croatian Rhapsody, and became a popular figure in Ji Sua Middle School. At the same time, Su Jiao also became a popular figure in Yingde High School. Because during her military training, she hooked up with the president of the student union of Yingde High School. That wasn't all. In just over 2 months after entering the school, more than 10 students had already gotten into conflicts because of her. Chapter 2036. Why is there a conflict? Of course, it's to get the beauty's attention. There are many students who play love games in Yingde High School, and there are also many girls. But Su Jiao is really the only one who is so bold and unrestrained. She's a demon in the boy's heart, and a poisonous thorn in the girl's heart. This is probably how the students of Yingde High School think of Su Jiao. That is to say, the students of Yingde High School and Ji Sua High School don't interfere with each other's business. Otherwise, the relationship between this pair of sisters would not be unknown until now. But what Gu Xingyin plans to do now is to expose the relationship between the two. Then she will take this opportunity to do something. This day, after school. Yen, there's a new milk tea shop behind the school. Let's go and try it together? Tianmi, a classmate who has a good relationship with her, asks her. Gu Xingyin shakes her head and says apologetically, "I'm afraid I can't today. I want to pick up my sister later." Tianmi is a little surprised. Yen, you have a sister? Gu Xingyin's face shows a smile. It seems that she has a good relationship with this sister, and her name is Su Jiao. She and I are twins. Now she's studying in Yingde. Twins? Sure enough, Tianmi's attention is immediately attracted by her words. She really wants to see a girl who looks like Yen. And I heard that Yingde is in a mess. I'll go with you. She is a little worried. Among the students of Ji Sua High School, Yingde's reputation is really not good. Gu Xingyin didn't expect that she would ask to go with her, but it doesn't seem to be a big deal. She nods. Then let's go together. The distance between the two schools is not very far. The two decide to walk. Along the way, Gu Xingyin spares no effort to talk about how cute and obedient her sister is. She's obviously a sister complex. It makes Tianmi very curious about this Su Jiao who she has never seen before. Soon, the two arrived at the school gate of Yingde. At this time, there are many people coming and going at the school gate. Gu Shengyin noticed that many people were sizing him up with their gazes. Those gazes didn't have any good intentions. Tianmi obviously noticed it too. She couldn't help but complain in a low voice, "I told you that Yingde is in a mess. Look at how they look at people. How rude." Gu Shengyin patted her arm and said, "Well, I'll call Yao Yao. When she comes out, we'll go drink milk tea together." Tianmi nodded. Gu Shengyin took out her mobile phone and was about to make a call. Then, she was stopped by a girl's voice. "Isn't this Campus Belle Sue?" Gu Shengyin looked up and saw a few girls in Yingde High School's uniform walking towards them with unfriendly expressions. It seemed like it was directed at him. Gu Shengyin roughly understood that these girls should be targeting Su Jiao. However, she didn't say it out loud. Instead, she asked curiously, "Who are you?" Seeing her like this, the girl couldn't help but laugh mockingly. "What kind of game is School Belle Sue playing? Do you think you can pretend to be a top student by wearing Ji Suo's uniform? Or have you come up with some new tricks to seduce someone in bed?" Her words made the other girls around her laugh. Another girl with dyed hair said exaggeratedly, "You don't say, School Belle Sue really looks a little pure after changing her clothes and makeup." Chapter 2037. It's a pity that no matter how decent she looks on the outside, she's still a slut who has slept with countless people. Gu Shengyin was trembling with anger. He pointed at the girls and said, "Who are you? What do you mean by framing others for no reason? Be careful that I'll sue you for slander." Slander? The leading girl thought she heard a big joke. She looked at Gu Shengyin and said, "Who in Yingde doesn't know that you, Su Jiao, are a slut who can sleep with anyone? Sue us? Go ahead and sue us. If you sue the whole Xia city, everyone will know what kind of shameless vixen you are." "Hey, is there something wrong with you guys? This is our Yan Yan's first time in Yingde. If you want to scold someone, please find the right person first. Our Yan Yan's name is Su Jian, not Su Jiao." Tianmi seemed to realize something and stood in front of Gu Shengyin and retorted coldly. When the girls heard this, they were all stunned. Looking at Gu Shengyin carefully, they felt that although this girl looked exactly the same as Su Jiao, her temperament was completely different. Did they really mistake her for someone else? The girl who dyed her hair spoke again. "Are you kidding me? Where did you learn this new trick from?" She looked at Gu Shengyin with some disdain. "When you're lying, can't you at least change your phone? Su Jiao also uses this phone. Even the phone casing is exactly the same. You say you're not Su Jiao, are you her twin sister? Do you really think this is an idol drama?" Gu Shengyin said in her heart, "I'm really her twin sister." She stopped Tianmi, who still wanted to argue with her, and dialed 110 in front of her without another word. "Rumors kill people. So Yao Yao's life in the school is like this? I'm going to call the police today. Let's see if you're justified in framing others." Seeing her like this, the girls were stunned for a moment. "You're really not Su Jiao?" Gu Shengyin ignored her and called her parents without another word. His words were very serious. He said that Su Jiao had suffered a great grievance in Yingde and had been framed and slandered. If he hadn't come to Yingde today, he wouldn't have found out. His own daughter was being treated like this in school. How could this be? Without another word, Papa Su and Mama Su put down whatever they were doing and rushed to the school. Gu Shengyin called Su Jiao again and said that she would wait for her at the school gate. At that time, Su Jiao was cuddling with a senior in the school's dance studio. After receiving the call, her face didn't look good. "What's the matter?" The boy's hand was still dishonestly drilling into her clothes. Su Jiao slapped his hand away in annoyance. "Don't make trouble. My sister is here. I have to meet her at the school gate." The boy's eyes lit up. "You have a sister? Is she pretty?" Su Jiao looked at her mockingly. "Of course it's beautiful. But don't think about it. She's a top student in Jisoo. She's not like us." Seeing the boy's appearance, she wasn't angry. People like them were only together for the sake of novelty and pleasure. "You said feelings?" These days, who still cared about that kind of thing? Seeing that she tidied herself up and walked to the school gate, The boy hurriedly followed. I'll go with you to meet our sister. Knowing that he had an ulterior motive, Su Jiao just sneered and didn't say anything. Chapter 2038. On the other side, Gu Shengyin stood there quietly after the phone call. She seemed to have made up her mind to stand there and wait for someone. And those few girls also stood aside in disbelief, as if they really wanted to see if Su Jiao was deliberately mystifying things. Originally, Su Jiao was a very famous person in Yingde. In addition, Gu Shengyin was wearing a Ji Suo school uniform and was surrounded by a few unfriendly Yingde students. It was really eye-catching. Many people who were preparing to go home after school also quietly stopped in their tracks, ready to watch the fun. When Su Jiao came to the school gate, she saw such a scene. Her sister, Su Jian, and another Ji Suo student she didn't know were standing at the gate of her school. Facing all kinds of gazes, her expression didn't change, indifferent like a pure snow lotus in front of Buddha. She was a white lotus. This had always been Su Jiao's secretly evaluation of her sister. Hypocrite. She rolled her eyes in her heart and walked over to that side. When the boy standing next to her saw Su Jian, he was startled, and then a trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. He only knew that it was Su Jiao's sister, but he didn't expect it to be twins. The sisters who looked exactly the same, if they could play together. Thinking about it, he felt a little hot. Su Jiao ignored the gazes on her and walked straight to Gu Shengyin. Sister. Gu Shengyin's eyes lit up. When she looked at Su Jiao, she already had a smile on her face. Yao Yao. The few Yingde girls who were looking for trouble with Gu Shengyin looked at Su Jiao walking over, as if they had seen a ghost. They couldn't help but look back at Gu Shengyin standing there. Were they really exactly the same? Su Jiao looked at them and knew what they were here for. She rolled her eyes at the girls and sneered. Zhang Jiajia, I don't want to fight with you today. Don't look for trouble. As soon as she said that, Gu Shengyin seemed to realize something. She hurriedly took 2 steps forward and came to Su Jiao's side, holding her hand. Oh right, let me tell you, Yao Yao. I just came to your school. These girls, she pointed at the few people who were looking for trouble earlier and said with some anger in her voice, their words are very unpleasant. Every word they say is framing you. When Su Jiao heard her words, she could roughly guess what her sister, who had always lived in a civilized environment, had heard. She didn't care about these things at all. She couldn't help but pull her hand out of Gu Shengyin's and said impatiently, What's the big deal? Their mouths are on their bodies. Let them say whatever they want. It's not like they'll lose anything. The girl, Zhang Jiajia, who was the leader of the group, obviously knew that she had found trouble with the wrong person. They thought that they were quite reasonable and were a little embarrassed to Gu Shengyin, an outsider. Originally, they planned to let Su Jiao go today. But when they heard Gu Shengyin's words, they couldn't bear it. Zhang Jiajia raised her eyelids and said with a sneer, Unpleasant words? Talking nonsense? I say, sister, do you really not know or are you pretending not to know? What kind of person is your good sister Su Jiao? Gu Shengyin was furious. Shut up all of you. She looked at Su Jiao and said comfortingly, Yao Yao, don't be afraid. I've already called my parents and called the police. These people who started rumors and caused trouble will definitely be taught a lesson. Chapter 2039. When she said this, her eyes were sparkling. Obviously, she was very satisfied with what she had done. However, Su Jiao's expression changed drastically. She said angrily, You even called Dad and Mom? And called the police? Gu Shengyin nodded and said gently, Yao Yao, don't worry about being retaliated against. Dad and Mom will come over to solve the problem later. Tell us all the grievances you have suffered in the past few months. We will help you. At most, you can change schools. Before she could finish speaking, she was pushed away fiercely. Su Jian, you're so annoying. I'm fine here. Who asked you to meddle in other people's business? Su Jiao glared at her. Looking carefully, her eyes were full of disgust and anger. Gu Shengyin was stunned. Su Jiao had pushed her too hard. If Tianmi hadn't reacted in time, she would have been pushed down directly. As a bystander, Tianmi, who had seen everything from the beginning to the end, could see that Yan Yan's sister wasn't as innocent and harmless as Yan Yan said. Looking at her now, she was clearly guilty. Thinking of what the girls next to her said, Tianmi didn't think further. She just said to Su Jiao, right? Our Yan Yan specially came over after school to drink milk tea with you. She knows that you have a hard time in school and is being bullied, so she wants to stand up for you. What kind of attitude is this? She's your biological sister. Su Jiao's mind was full of thoughts. Her parents were coming soon, and the police were coming too. She was afraid that her matter couldn't be hidden anymore. The Su family's upbringing was relatively strict, so although Su Jiao played crazily outside, she never showed it at home. Now that Su Jian was meddling in other people's business, wouldn't her family know everything about her? Thinking of this possibility, her mind couldn't calm down. Hearing Tianmi's question, she couldn't help but complain. Did I beg Su Jian to come? I'm living well in Yingda. What right does she have to meddle in other people's business? If you ask me, you students of Jisua should just stay in Jisua. Don't come to Yingda to join in the fun. Tianmi still wanted to retort, but she suddenly heard a suppressed cry beside her. She immediately became flustered. Hey, Yan Yan, why are you crying? Don't cry, don't be sad. Your sister is an ingrate, don't cry. She took out a tissue and handed it to Gu Shengyin while glaring at Su Jiao. Heartless. Su Jiao only felt irritated at this moment. The boy beside him even put on a gentle look and said, Yao Yao's sister, don't cry. Our Yao Yao is just in a bad mood. Oh, let me introduce myself first. I'm Zhao Qing, Yao Yao's man. However, Gu Shengyin ignored him. Tianmi looked at him unhappily and said, Why are you so close to me? Move away. The boy retreated to Su Jiao's side. Su Jiao looked at him coldly and said nothing. She just said to Gu Shengyin, If there's nothing else, I'll go back first. She didn't want to stand here like a fool in front of others. But soon, a call stopped her in her tracks. Yao Yao, I received a call from Yan Yan. What's going on? A familiar voice came into Su Jiao's ears. Mother Su hurriedly got out of the car and saw her eldest daughter crying her heart out. Chapter 2040. Mother Su's anxiousness turned into heartache. She hurried to Gu Shengyin's side. Tianmi obediently greeted her and stepped aside, allowing Mother Su to pull Gu Shengyin into her arms. What's wrong? Mother Su asked as she patted her daughter's back. Gu Shengyin was crying so hard she couldn't speak. Mother Su then turned to look at her younger daughter. Father Su, who came up next, also looked at his daughter. Su Jiao bit her lip and didn't say anything. What was she supposed to say? That her sister was crying because she was angry? When the other girls saw that there really were parents coming over, they didn't dare to say anything else. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. Then, the shrill sound of police sirens wailed in their direction. Su Jiao's eyes twitched. Su Jian had actually called the police over. Soon, several uniformed police officers came over. Who is Su Jian? We received a call from her saying that there was campus violence, and that students were wantonly insulting and abusing others. Father Su and Mother Su didn't expect their daughter to call the police, and the worry in their hearts rose several levels. Seeing her like this, the two thought that Gu Shengyin had been wronged. Mother Su said with heartache, Yan, father and mother are here. If you've been wronged, tell us. We and the police will stand up for you. Gu Shengyin still didn't say anything. It wouldn't be easy to talk about this matter if she were to speak up. Tianmi looked around and stood up. To be honest, a girl of her age was still a little scared when she saw the police. But seeing her best friend like this, she was indeed angry. She stood up and explained everything that had happened not long ago in an orderly manner. She told them about the insults they had received when they first came to Yingda, and how Su Jiao's impatient attitude made Gu Shengyin so angry that she cried. She clearly didn't have a good impression of Su Jiao, and even glared at her towards the end. It was only then that Papa Su and Mama Su realized that the one being scolded was their youngest daughter, Su Jiao, and that Yan Yan was crying because of Yao Yao. Hearing Yan Yan's friend's words, Mama Su looked at her younger daughter in disbelief. Yao Yao, how could you talk to your sister like that? Was this still the lively, sweet, and spoiled little girl at home? Su Zhiyao's heart was full of uneasiness at this moment. She was not in the mood to speak at all. Papa Su, on the other hand, was more thoughtful. He looked at the policeman and said coldly, "Officers, thank you for coming here. It's just that my daughter has been insulted in school. I seriously suspect that this is not an isolated phenomenon. School violence is very serious now, and it has seriously affected the normal lives of students. There have even been deaths in some places. I hope that the police comrades have investigated carefully." Gu Shengyin couldn't help but think, as expected of a businessman, he knows how to state the pros and cons. He escalated this matter to campus violence, which immediately raised the severity of the matter by several levels. Even if the police don't want to pay attention to it, they have to. The effect of these words was very obvious. As soon as Papa Su said this, the policeman hurriedly said that they would investigate carefully and communicate with the school leaders. The other girls also seemed to be frightened. The girl in the lead forced herself to calm down and said, "What is insulting? What is slandering? If I really slandered her, Su Zhiao, I admit my mistake and I apologize." She sneered and said, "But uncles, you can ask the people around. When I, Zhang Jie, scolded her, Su Zhiao, was there a sentence that was fabricated?" Chapter 2041. As soon as these words came out, Su Zhiao's face turned pale. Father Su and Mother Su were originally furious, but when they saw their daughter's guilty expression, their hearts tightened. Could it be that there really was something they didn't know about? After all, Father Su was someone who had been in the business world for a long time, and his ability to read people's expressions was not ordinary. Seeing this, he said calmly, "Police officers, I think it's better for us to talk somewhere else." After he finished speaking, he glanced around. Because of the change here, Yingda's school gate was already surrounded by many students who were watching the fun. The police officers didn't want to be too conspicuous, so they quickly nodded. Father Su called Su Zhiao's class teacher, and the teachers of Zhang Jie and the others also rushed over, and everyone went to the school's dispute room. Originally, Gu Shengyin was going to be taken by Mother Su, but she suddenly stood up straight and wiped away her tears. "Mom, I have an appointment with my classmate, so I won't go with you," she whispered. Mother Su instinctively wanted to refuse to let her eldest daughter go with her, but she looked at her daughter's obviously red and swollen eyes, and the words came to her mouth, "Then be careful on the road." Gu Shengyin nodded, confessed to Father Su, and pulled Tianmi out of the door. She didn't look at Su Zhiao the whole time. Su Zhiao frowned at her sister, and there was a faint uneasiness in her heart. She didn't know why, but she always felt like she had lost something. Gu Shengyin walked absent-mindedly along the way. Tianmi thought she was still sad, and comforted her. "Yan Yan, don't be sad, let's go. Your sister Mimi will invite you and milk tea." Gu Shengyin smiled at her. "Actually, I can figure it out, but I'm a little sad." Tianmi also fell silent. Anyone would be sad about this. She was afraid to bring up Gu Shengyin's sad memories, and deliberately didn't dare to mention Su Zhiao's matter, but who knew that Gu Shengyin would talk about it herself? Ever since I was young, I've always thought of her and gave in to her in everything. I even doted on her more than my parents. I thought she liked me too because we are the closest sisters, but Mimi, did you see that? She hates me. When Gu Shengyin said this, a trace of pain flashed through her clear eyes. The pain was real. It originated from an elder sister who was hurt by her own younger sister. What could Tianmi say? She could only pat her friend on the shoulder. Everyone will grow up and have their own thoughts. Yan Yan, take it easy. Gu Shengyin shook her head. That's not what I can't stand the most. She looked at Tianmi, her eyes filled with sadness. Did you see Yao Yao's reaction just now? She was feeling guilty. Those girls said those things about her. I called the police and told Dad and Mom, but she didn't feel angry. Instead, she felt guilty. Why would he feel guilty? Both of them knew what was hidden within. Gu Shengyin looked a little absent-minded. I can't stand it at all. The girl who loved to act coquettishly and call me sister since childhood will become a slutty vixen in others' eyes. The disappointment and sadness coming from this body were so real. Such a big reaction was because Su Jian was a person with emotional cleanliness. Her character was completely different from that of her younger sister, Su Jiao. She could understand those who wantonly lived their lives, but she didn't want to have more contact with such people. However, in the original plot, Su Jian, who was vaguely aware of something, chose to deceive herself and let her feelings for her younger sister take the upper hand until she died. But now Gu Shengyin was unwilling to forgive her. Chapter 2042. When Xiao Cheng drove to a pharmacy to buy anti-inflammatory medicine, he inadvertently looked up and saw two girls in Jisua school uniforms standing on the side of the road. One of them had her back to him, so he couldn't see clearly. The other girl was wearing a close-fitting school skirt that showed off her tall and slender figure. Her face was still a little young, but she already had a beautiful face. Thanks to his strong eyesight, Xiao Cheng could still see the girl's red and swollen eyes from such a distance. She's crying? For some reason, Xiao Cheng's heart suddenly twitched faintly. This feeling was both heartache and anger. Why is she crying? Who offended her? Xiao Cheng thought for a while, then suddenly reacted. Who is this girl? Why would I have such strange emotions towards a stranger? By the time he reacted, the two girls had already disappeared without a trace. He was left alone, feeling lost. That night, Gu Shengyin ate dinner alone. The auntie at home was a little worried, but Gu Shengyin knew that most likely the Su parents already knew about Su Jiao's matter, and it was probably very chaotic over there. She slowly finished her dinner and walked in the garden for a while to digest her food before returning to her room to take a shower and change clothes to rest. A good night's sleep. The next day, when Gu Shengyin woke up in the morning, she was not surprised to see the family of three, who didn't look too good. Among them, Su Jiao's eyes were red and swollen, as if she had cried hard last night. She said good morning to her parents, then quietly began to eat. Mother Su looked at her eldest daughter as if she didn't see her younger daughter, and felt very uncomfortable. But she didn't blame Gu Shengyin at all. Yesterday afternoon, the two of them had come back from Yingda High School after figuring out everything that had happened. It was just that the truth of the matter was really hard for the husband and wife to accept. In this world, no parents would be able to tolerate their 16-year-old daughter having sex with several boys at such a young age. Especially since there was no deception or coercion involved. She was willing. God knows, when Mother Su heard the news, she almost fainted. For a moment, she looked at Su Jiao and actually felt a sense of hatred. How could she be like this? How could she be like this? Yan. Mama Su hesitated for a moment before saying, "Your father and I have already found a new school for your sister. It's an international school in Imperial Capital, and the management is stricter. She might only come back once a month." She was afraid that her eldest daughter would be reluctant to part with him. Both she and her husband knew how deep Yanyan's feelings for their youngest daughter were. Gu Shengyin just lowered her eyes when she heard this. Did he mean that his reputation in Xia City was ruined, so he could only send him to other places? When she heard this, she only gave a faint and did not express anything else. Mama Su and Papa Su looked at each other, seeing the sigh and melancholy in each other's eyes. It seemed that Yan was really angry with her younger sister this time. Su Jiao glanced at Gu Shengyin. She was angry too. If Su Jian hadn't come looking for her at school, or if she hadn't taken the initiative to call the police, she wouldn't have been in this situation. Last night, she had cried for a long time and begged her parents to change their mind, but this time, her parents, who had always doted on her, had steeled their hearts. They ignored their youngest daughter's cries and said firmly that this time, there was no room for discussion. Chapter 2043. Su Jiao's heart was filled with resentment towards Gu Shengyin. She thought to herself, "You're ignoring me, but I don't want to talk to you either. Only the parents of both sides looked at their two daughters with some worry. No parents wanted to see their two children have a bad relationship, especially Su Zhiyao. They only had one pair of daughters, and they hoped that after they passed away, the sisters would be able to look out for each other and not cut each other off. In the evening, Mama Su went to Gu Xingyin's room. Gu Xingyin was sitting on the bed reading a book and was a little surprised to see her mother come in. As a mother who respected her children's privacy and free space, Mama Su rarely took the initiative to visit her children's rooms. "Mom." Mama Su looked at her eldest daughter and called out to her. Gu Xingyin looked at her in confusion. Under the gentle but not glaring light in the room, Mama Su felt that her eldest daughter's eyes were so clear that they seemed to be shining. She sighed. "Yan Yan, we've already booked a flight for Yao Yao tomorrow morning." After she said that, she saw the light in her eldest daughter's eyes go out. She said gloomily, "Oh." Her attitude was clear, she didn't want to talk about it. Mama Su saw that and felt a little embarrassed. She knew very well that her eldest daughter was the one who had been wronged in this matter. But as a mother, she still hoped that her two daughters could reconcile. So she said, "Yan Yan, don't blame your sister, okay?" Gu Xingyin closed her book and didn't say anything. Mama Su looked at her daughter patiently. She knew her eldest daughter's temperament. No matter what the answer was, she wasn't someone who would use avoidance and silence to solve a problem. Sure enough, as if she was sorting out her words, Gu Xingyin paused for a while before she spoke. "Mom, I'm actually very tired." Mama Su's eyes widened. "Since I was little, I've always thought of myself as the older sister, so I should be good to Su Zhiyao. Whenever I got something, I would leave the best for her. Whenever I saw something new, I would definitely take her to see it. When something happened, I would stand in front of her. Just like this time, when I thought she was being bullied, I didn't even think about it and wanted to stand up for her." Gu Xingyin raised her head and looked into her mother's eyes. People's hearts are made of flesh. For so many years, even if we were strangers, not to mention that we're sisters of the same mother, if she had thought of me and thought of my good points, she would not have said such heart-wrenching words to me. At this point, she suddenly laughed softly. "Mom, after all these years, are you used to it? Do you think that since I'm the elder sister, it's only right for me to give in to Su Zhiyao?" Mama Su was speechless. She had always prided herself on being fair. It was only when her eldest daughter laid everything out that she suddenly realized that she and her husband had long been unfair in their hearts. Yan Yan was only a few minutes older than Yao Yao. Since when did they think that Yan Yan should give in to Yao Yao? Just because she was sensible, she should be at a disadvantage? Gu Xingyin sighed as she spoke. She gently lowered her head, and the curve of her neck was unusually fragile. There was a trace of imperceptible grievance in her tone. "Sometimes, I also wish that after I get into trouble without any scruples, there will be someone who will pamper and protect me." Chapter 2044. Mrs. Su's heart shook. Her eldest daughter's soft words were like a soft knife, slowly but surely grinding into the softest part of her heart. Such unbearable pain made it impossible for her to escape. She couldn't help but reach out and put her arm around her daughter's shoulders. Gu Xingyin felt her mother's body tremble slightly. But it wasn't enough. She curved her eyes and said softly but cruelly, "Mom, I don't want to talk to her anymore. I don't like her anymore." She clearly felt her mother's body tremble violently, but she closed her eyes and didn't say another word. Mrs. Su's eyes were red when she came out of her eldest daughter's room. She then went to her younger daughter's room. Su Zhiyao's room was very messy. Her clothes and shoes were scattered all over the bed and floor. She had always been resistant to her parents' decision, and naturally didn't want to clean up. Mrs. Su frowned when she saw the scene. She was a woman who liked to be clean and tidy, and the style of the room clearly didn't make her happy. But now wasn't the time to be concerned about that. Mrs. Su took a look and planned to have the housekeeper come over later to clean up. "Yao Yao," she called out to her daughter, who was sitting on the bed hugging her knees. Su Zhiyao was full of resentment. She didn't want to leave Xia City, didn't want to go to the capital where she didn't even know her friends. In Su Jiao's eyes, her parents made such a decision because they despised her. She was abandoned. Because they had a better daughter in Su Jian. Mrs. Su's arrival brought her a last glimmer of hope. "Mom!" Her eyes lit up. Su Jiao got off the bed and took her mother's hand, her eyes full of hope. "Can you tell Dad not to send me to the capital? I miss you. I don't want to go there. I can't bear to part with you." Her delicate features and the way she pouted her lips and acted coquettishly could make most people lose control. What's more, the person she was acting coquettishly with was her own mother. Su Jiao's coquettishness had always worked on Mrs. Su. She thought that as long as her soft-hearted mother was persuaded, then her chances of persuading her father would increase infinitely. Her father had always been strict with his children, but was incomparably gentle and indulgent with his wife. Su Jiao's plan was perfect, but she miscalculated this time. Her mother looked at her helplessly. "Yao Yao, your father and I made the decision to send you to the capital this time. Mama can't indulge you anymore." Su Jiao could tell from her eyes that there was no turning back for this matter. She snorted and unhappily let go of her mother's hand. She angrily sat on the bed again with a look that said, "I'm very unhappy. Don't bother me." Mother Su wanted to say something when she saw her daughter like this, but hesitated. She stood there for a while, and Su Jiao never looked back. After a while, Su Jiao said in a muffled voice, "Then why did Mom come here?" "Yao Yao, you should apologize to your sister before you go to the capital," said Mrs. Su in a gentle voice. Su Jiao suddenly turned her head. She didn't expect that her mother would come looking for her in the middle of the night not to console her, but to ask her to apologize to Su Jian. On what basis? If it weren't for her, he wouldn't have fallen to the point where he couldn't even stay in Xia City, where he grew up. She didn't want to. She didn't say anything, but her expression and attitude clearly expressed her refusal. Chapter 2045. Mother Su's expression was one of obvious disappointment. Seeing Yao Yao being so willful and insensible, she once again reflected on the way she had educated her child. It was undoubtedly a failure. "Yao Yao." When she spoke again, her mother's voice had become stern. Su Jiao jumped in fright. In all her memories of being sensible, her mother had always played the role of a loving mother. She rarely spoke to her with such a stern expression. Mother Su said word by word, "Go apologize to your sister. You've gone too far this time. You've hurt her." Su Jiao had always been a rebellious person to the bone. Otherwise, she wouldn't have played so crazily in school. It was just that when she was at home, she had hidden her rebellious nature. Because she knew what kind of appearance could get more love from her parents. But now that she was going to be sent to the capital, Su Jiao didn't want to hold back her temper at all. "I won't." She stood up in annoyance and turned her head. Mother Su clearly saw that when her younger daughter mentioned her sister, her face was full of disgust and impatience. "What did I hurt her in?" Su Jiao was indignant. "She's always doing this and that in the name of what's good for me. When did I say I wanted it? Did I beg her to care for me? You always say that Su Jian is obedient and sensible. I think she's doing it on purpose. She hasn't given up anything at all, but in everyone's eyes, she's that obedient and well-behaved daughter. I'm not going to apologize to her. I hate Su Jian. I don't want to see her at all," Su Jiao said loudly. Mother Su trembled with anger. She found it hard to believe that Su Jiao would say such cold words. Yan Yan was so good to her. They had seen it all since they were young. As the person involved, could she really not feel it? There had never been a time when Mother Su so clearly felt her eldest daughter's feelings when she said those words. She should have felt her younger sister's attitude, right? That was why she was so sad and said, "I don't like her anymore," in a fit of pique. "Su Jiao, when you say this, touch your own conscience. How could I have given birth to such a heartless thing like you?" Mother Su was furious. Su Jiao was now a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. She straightened her neck and retorted, "Yes. That's right, I'm heartless and ingrate. It's fine as long as you have your obedient daughter, Su Jin." Throw me to the capital and let me fend for myself." Mother Su was so angry that she couldn't speak, and the mother and daughter parted on bad terms. The next day, Gu Xingyin went to class as usual. When Mother Su asked her for her opinion for the last time, she refused to send Su Jiao off. She wanted to cut off all ties with Su Jiao. Su Jiao, on the other hand, was stunned when she saw that Su Jian was so heartless as to not send her off. She was in disbelief. From what she knew, no matter what trouble she got into, even if she made Su Jian the scapegoat and angered her, she would get over it quickly and would not blame her at all. In Su Jiao's heart, Su Jian was the kind of person who didn't have a temper at all. No matter how you provoked her, she wouldn't get angry. She thought that it would be the same this time, that Su Jian would take the initiative to make up with her. At that time, Su Jiao still didn't understand that all tolerance and forgiveness was built on the basis that the other party loved you. Chapter 2046. Su Jian liked her sister from the same mother and loved her dearly, so she could forgive her no matter what. But what if this originally unequal relationship lost the support of family love one day? Su Jian had already chosen to give up, and Su Jiao was still ignorant. She still didn't realize that she had already lost the most precious relationship in the world. At this time, Su Jiao just looked back angrily before boarding the plane, but she still didn't see that familiar figure. She turned back and said to herself, "Su Jian, I won't forgive you." Gu Shengyin was quietly doing exercises in the classroom. She received a reminder from the system that Su Jiao had already boarded the plane to the capital. Gently exhaling, Gu Shengyin had a relaxed smile on her face. "Mimi, let's go for milk tea after school today?" She should have gone last time, but the matter with Su Jiao had ruined her mood. In the blink of an eye, a year had passed. Su Jian had already entered the second year of high school, and Su Jiao had also gone to the capital for a year. In the first few months, she came back once a month. Later on, she gradually stopped coming back during the monthly holidays. She would only come back once during the long holidays. Gu Shengyi knew that a person like Su Jiao would be able to live well no matter where she was. When she was free, she would pay attention to Su Jiao's whereabouts. The high school she went to was chosen by Su Jiao's parents after a long time, and the management was very strict. At least, Su Jiao couldn't mess around in that kind of place. However, a cat that wanted to steal fish couldn't be caged in a cage. In addition to being in a bad mood for the first month, Su Jiao confirmed her relationship with the school hunk in the same grade in the second month. But due to the school's strict regulation of puppy love, the two could only be sneaky and didn't dare to expose themselves in front of others. Su Jiao's parents, who had been paying attention to their daughter's situation, thought that their daughter had finally learned well and were relieved. But in reality, Su Jiao and her new boyfriend were having fun in the school's Grove Lounge. During the free time during the holidays, they even went out to bars and had one-night stands with good men. This was a new trick that Su Jiao had recently fallen in love with. In her opinion, this kind of game where both parties were willing to go their separate ways after sleeping together was really novel and exciting, and she didn't have to take responsibility for it. The two parents could clearly see that the relationship between the two children at home had dropped to the freezing point. Jiyu's eldest daughter, who had always been gentle and understanding, seemed to have been hurt badly a year ago and refused to forgive her younger sister. Even if Su Jiao took the initiative to talk to her, Gu Shengyin just coldly replied with one or two sentences. Her attitude was not much better than that of a stranger. Papa Su and Mama Su had talked to their eldest daughter a few times, but their daughter, who had always been gentle, was unexpectedly persistent this time. "I feel very good now," Gu Shengyin said with a smile, but there was no warmth in her eyes. Su Jiao had always been spoiled. She couldn't do things like stick a warm face to a cold butt. After her goodwill didn't get a response, she was even more dissatisfied. In her words, "Su Jian doesn't want to talk to me. Do you think I care?" What Gu Shengyin wanted was for everyone to know that the two daughters of the Su family didn't get along. In the future, no matter what trouble Su Jiao caused, no one would tie her and Su Jiao together. Don't drag others down with you if you want to court death. See you for the rest of the night. Chapter 2047. Yao Yao, it's the holidays tomorrow. Are you willing to? Su Jiao walked forward casually. Beside her, a handsome boy followed eagerly behind her. Su Jiao was already a little impatient. This boy was her boyfriend who she had been dating for more than a year. Su Jiao was already sick of it. It was just that this school was very strict and the ratio of men to women was large. There were very few boys to begin with, and there were even fewer good-looking ones who would cause trouble. In that case, the people around him could be considered to be the best among them. It was also because of this reason that Su Jiao hadn't broken up with him. However, for a woman who pursued novelty and excitement, not changing boyfriends for more than a year was an extremely boring thing. The boy behind her was still saying something, but Su Jiao didn't hear him at all. She looked around the school that she was already familiar with and said indifferently, "No, I told my family that I'm going home during the holidays." The boy was disappointed, but he didn't say anything. Su Jiao wasn't in the mood to care about his feelings. She slowly walked out of the school gate. Every month, the students of this school could only go out of the school gate during the 3 or 4 days of the holidays. This was a nightmare for Su Jiao. She had complained more than once that her family had sent her to prison. Her parents had bought an apartment for her near the school. This was what she had exchanged for with a good attitude and coquettishness after half a year of school. Su Jiao entered her apartment and changed out of her tacky school uniform. That was what she had always said about this school uniform. She took a shower, changed into a halter top, and put on a mature and flirtatious makeup. Su Jiao looked at the woman in the mirror with satisfaction. She had an exquisite figure and a seductive aura all over her body. This appearance was the most popular in the nightclub. Looking at the time, it was almost dark. She picked up her bag, turned around, and went downstairs. After finishing her dinner, Su Jiao slowly walked toward her destination. She looked just like a beautiful fashionable lady. Red light. Xiao Cheng stopped the car and looked around casually. His gaze suddenly paused. He saw a woman. The woman had a good figure and a beautiful face, but Xiao Cheng wasn't attracted by these 2 points. A year ago, he had caught a glimpse of that figure in Xia City. Even now, it hadn't disappeared from Xiao Cheng's mind. Xiao Cheng had never believed in love at first sight. He had once thought that as time passed, the girl who had once made his heart throb would gradually become a beautiful memory. Wonderful memories. But it didn't. Even after such a long time, he could still clearly remember the girl's light blue skirt fluttering in the breeze, and her red and swollen eyes that had been baptized by tears. He had thought of going to Xia City again to see if he could find her. It was just that he was too busy with school and family matters. With such a delay, more than a year had passed. But today, when he was waiting at a red light out of boredom, he saw a woman who looked very similar to the girl he saw last year. Xiao Cheng felt excited for no reason. This woman looked very similar to her, but Xiao Cheng was sure that she wasn't her. Chapter 2048. Xiao Cheng, what are you looking at? Chu Ming, his best friend in the front passenger seat, asked curiously. He followed Xiao Cheng's gaze and suddenly smiled meaningfully. So you're looking at a beauty. Chu Ming felt that this was very strange. He and Xiao Cheng grew up in the same courtyard. The two of them had been playing with each other since they were young. Chu Ming knew this childhood friend's personality quite well. For example, he didn't get close to women. With the Xiao family's attitude, there were countless women who were willing to stick to Xiao Cheng. Look at the people in their circle. Which one of them didn't learn how to eat meat when they were in their teens? Only Xiao Cheng, who was already 20 years old, hadn't even touched a girl's hand. If he hadn't confirmed that this childhood friend's sexual orientation was normal, Chu Ming would have been worried about his chastity. What was rare was that Xiao Cheng actually looked at a woman for more than half a minute today. Chu Ming looked up at the sky outside the window. It was still so foggy. Nothing strange had happened. He also sized up Su Jiao, then said to Xiao Cheng with a face full of praise, "Brother, you have good taste. This girl's looks and figure are first-rate." As he spoke, he gave Chu Ming a thumbs up. Xiao Cheng just glanced at him and couldn't be bothered to argue with him. The red light passed. Su Jiao walked across the sidewalk to the other side. Xiao Cheng glanced at her, started the car, and turned the steering wheel. Chu Ming looked at him as if he had seen a ghost. Xiao Cheng was so fast? Su Jiao looked at the time. It was still too early for the real nightlife. She was wondering if she should find a coffee shop to stay for a while when a car slowly stopped beside her. Mississippi, a clear and gentle voice was heard. Su Jiao's eyes lit up. As a voice lover, she had a good impression of a man with such a voice. She turned around and saw a pair of long legs coming down from the black Qian. Su Jiao's eyes lit up even more. She sized up the man without leaving a trace. He had a good figure, and under his slightly rolled-up white shirt were beautiful muscle curves. Further up, his facial features were clear and elegant. At this moment, he was looking at her with a gentle gaze. He was very much like a well-educated young master in a literary work. Such a man was actually not Su Jiao's cup of tea. She admired those masculine and fit men more, because often such men were more powerful in bed than ordinary men. However, this was not a necessary condition. For example, at this moment, Su Jiao was very happy to develop a one-night relationship with such a good-looking man. "Are you calling me?" The corners of her lips curled up slightly, and she lifted her chin slightly, showing just the right amount of arrogance. Men, after all, wouldn't cherish a woman who delivered herself to their doorstep. She had to show her delicate side. But obviously, Xiao Cheng didn't have the extra energy to pay attention to these things. He only smiled and asked, "Miss, are you from Xia City?" This time, it was Su Jiao who was surprised. She frowned and asked, "How did you know?" Xiao Cheng answered honestly, "I once saw someone who looked like you in Xia City." Chu Ming, who was standing on the other side, looked at his childhood friend in shock. "I didn't expect you to be this kind of childhood friend. He even knew how to pick up girls. What happened to not getting close to women?" You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.